Being selected to the Pro Bowl is one of the highest honors a player can earn during their career in the NFL. Over the years, the format has changed a few times, specifically how the two squads are divvied up. Traditionally, the teams were divided by conference, NFC and AFC, and then voted in based off of their performance. But in the time since, they have created a schoolyard-style picking system in an effort to increase intrigue around the game. But regardless of how the teams were picked, the game has remained a collection of the league's top talent at every position. One of the most entertaining aspects to the whole event, other than seeing all of the grizzled football guys donning tropical attire, is watching which star players get left out and which ones make it, because obviously they can't take everyone. And it is pretty hilarious watching how some of the egomaniacs that roam the NFL gridiron react to a perceived snubbing. It seems like there's at least one guy every year who ends up shocked that they weren't selected. It is pretty hard to feel bad for these guys though, because even if they are snubbed one year, more than likely, if they are as talented as they think they are, they will eventually get their time in the sun. It's rare that someone deserving doesn't earn at least one Pro Bowl selection. There is, however, one wide receiver who is definitely justified in any outrage he had at being snubbed, because despite being one of the best wide receivers around the league, year in and year out, he was never selected to the Pro Bowl, not even once. And to make matters worse, he was a 7th-round draft pick who worked his tail off to make it to the NFL, and who, by all accounts, was one of the most humble, genuine guys around the league. His name, Marcus Colston, the product of the now defunct Hofstra University D1 AA football program. Colston was selected with the 252nd overall pick in the 2005 NFL Draft, just 4 slots away from being undrafted. But against all odds, he was able to quickly become Drew Brees' favorite target in New Orleans. As impressive as Colston's career in the NFL was, his come-up was a feat in itself. Despite being a standout athlete in high school, both in football and track, he only received offers from the University of Missouri and the University of Hofstra, which was a 1AA program in Long Island, New York. Interestingly, he ended up choosing Hofstra, a school that was best known for its stint hosting the New York Jets training camp for a number of years. Although he was a little raw at the time, the lack of interest from bigger programs was a little surprising. Football did run in his blood, after all, as his father played briefly in the Canadian Football League, and it showed in his physique, as Colston stood a tall 6'5" and carried his thick 225-pound frame around well. Anyway, despite not being picked up by a big-time program, Colston was not deterred, and he went on to be a star at Hofstra, particularly during his senior year when he earned All-Atlantic 10 Football Conference honors and capped off his time with the pride and grand fashion, becoming a Hofstra career receiving yards leader with 2,834 yards. And that right there is a record that will likely stand forever, as the program has since been disbanded. Despite a strong showing at the collegiate level, Colston ran into more problems ahead of the NFL draft. Very few teams even had him on their draft board, and it wasn't just because of his mid-major college experience. Most scouts viewed Colston as a guy with good ball skills, but they viewed him as a tweener tight end prospect because of his size. Considering he had no experience at the position, they were skeptical what his value at the next level would be. Fortunately for Colston, and ultimately for the Saints, his decision to enter the league coincided with Sean Payton's first year as head coach. And being the eternal offensive innovator he is, Payton saw something in the wide receiver and decided to take a flyer on him at the end of the 2005 NFL Draft. Let's just say this investment ended up being a steal, and a steal that Payton and the Saints did not have to wait long to start seeing dividends from. Colston hit the ground running during his rookie season. He put up a great performance during the team's minicamp, so much so that Payton and Saints general manager Mickey Loomis decided to trade away veteran wide receiver Dante Stallworth. And just like that, Marcus Colston found himself in a starting role week 1 of the 2006 NFL season, which is insane for a 7th-round pick. He ended up becoming an integral part of the Saints offense that year, finishing the season with 70 receptions, 1,038 yards, and 8 touchdowns, finishing second to Tennessee Titans quarterback Vince Young in NFL Rookie of the Year voting. His performance, coupled with the addition of free agent quarterback Drew Brees, helped to boost the eternally lowly Saints to an NFC South Division title and an appearance in the NFC Championship game. Many people wondered if his breakout rookie season was just an aberration, but they could not have been more wrong. If anything, his rookie year set the tone for Colston's wildly consistent and productive 10-year career in the league. A career that Sean Payton summed up well during a statement on the wide receivers release in 2015, which came as the result of a failed physical. He said, "His production, consistency, toughness, and work ethic were second to none. You always knew what you were going to get from Marcus. and that was everything that he had. All the characteristics that Marcus possessed are what we look for in a New Orleans Saint. I thank Marcus for all that he did for our team and wish him the best of luck. To say that his time in New Orleans was special is an understatement.
I'm special!
He retired with franchise records in receptions, receiving yards, yards per catch, touchdowns, 1,000-yard seasons, but what's crazy is that somehow he never ended up being selected to a Pro Bowl, not one. It became apparent as the years went by that many people around the league unfairly credited Colston's success to simply being a cog in Drew Brees and Sean Payton's offensive system in New Orleans, probably in part because he came out of nowhere, and more so perhaps because of his playing style. Colston, you see, was not considered to be a burner. His 40-yard dash time at the combine was just 4.5 seconds. Instead, he capitalized on his size and phenomenal route running skills to develop into an outrageously consistent chain-moving receiver, but he was never really used as a downfield threat. This definitely contributed to the lack of hype surrounding the wide receiver, especially because during that era, the underneath wide receiver was not appreciated in the same way that it is in today's game. He was akin to guys like Wes Welker and Jarvis Landry, who in the time since have had no problem earning different accolades year in and year out. But the closer you look at Colston's career and how it compares to these underneath receivers, and it seems pretty clear that he never received the same recognition. Jarvis Landry earned 4 straight Pro Bowl selections between 2015 and 18. But if you look at his numbers, they are shockingly similar to Colston's peak seasons. Between 2006 and 2012, Colston racked up at least 1,000 yards 6 different times, and the one year he didn't in 2008, he missed a ton of time due to injury. And while some of Colston's detractors categorize his counting numbers as somewhat pedestrian, because his 1,000-yard seasons often ended up coming down to the last couple weeks of the year, he did have one year where he eclipsed 1,200 yards, something that the Pro Bowler Landry never did. The comparison becomes even more laughable when you look at any of Landry's per statistics. He has had 2 seasons with sub-10 yards per reception, and his career average is just 10.9, so while he was racking up receptions, so many of them were right around the line of scrimmage. It is even more absurd when you take a look at how some of Colston's numbers line up with other perennial Pro Bowl wideouts who get credit for being downfield threats. When Colston retired, his career yards per reception average was 13.9. Take a look at how he lined up with some of the other big-time wide receivers of his era. Brandon Marshall was a 6-time Pro Bowler and 1-time All-Pro selection. His average yards per catch was 12.7. You don't hear very many people whining that Brandon Marshall was more of a possession receiver, do you? Or you look at Reggie Wayne, who was known as an explosive downfield target. When he retired in 2014, his yards per catch, 13.4. Oh, and Colston wasn't a downfield threat, right? Reggie Wayne is a very interesting comparison because people love to say that Colston's production was just a product of the explosive pass-heavy offense that Drew Brees led down in New Orleans. But with Reggie Wayne, who literally played with one of the top 5 quarterbacks of all time, and an absolutely dominant offense that was loaded with other receiving weapons, he never got the same system baby tag that Colston so humbly wore. Think about it. There was a stretch in the mid-2000s that the Indianapolis Colts led the league in a number of offensive categories almost every year, in part because of just how pass-heavy the offense was during that time. So while Wayne did have a few seasons where he racked up 1,300-plus receiving yards, he was also getting almost 140 targets almost every season. And that was on the low side for Wayne, who has had years where he got 195, 175, and 156 targets, while Colston only had more than 140 targets once. So yeah, tell me how Marcus Colston's production was just a result of a pass-happy offense. If you ask me, Colston got a raw deal, especially when you consider the financial repercussions from his repeated snubbings. It isn't just that missing out on the Pro Bowl year after year hurt Colston each time his contract negotiations came around, but almost every NFL veteran has had Pro Bowl bonuses written to their deals. These bonuses can range anywhere from $25,000 all the way up to $500,000, so it's not a minor chunk of change that he was missing out on. And the more you look at his accomplishments, the more ridiculous it becomes. In the first 10 years of their career, only 18 receivers have caught more passes than Colston. He's one of just 28 receivers who have amassed 8 seasons of more than 50 catches in their first 10 seasons, and it just keeps getting better. He's one of just 12 players in NFL history to net 750-plus receiving yards in 9 or more of their first 10 seasons, and he's one of only 6 that have corralled in 4 or more touchdowns in every one of their first 10 seasons in the league. I say all this to say that Colston was one of the most consistent wide receivers to ever grace the NFL field.
left unattended, and there he is. And there's Colston breaking a tackle and getting down to the 3.
Not only that, but he was also the most consummate professional, which is not something you always see at the wide receiver position. And what's crazy is that, just like public perception has hurt how diva wide receivers like Terrell Owens and Antonio Brown are viewed, when it came to voting for league-wide awards, Colston was a victim of his understated quiet brilliance. Now that his career is officially a wrap, it doesn't look like voters will ever get an opportunity to use the makeup call. And as a result, Colston, who was aptly known as the Quiet Storm, may go down as the best wide receiver to never make a Pro Bowl. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time to do that by clicking the subscribe button down below. If you like the video, then like the video. We'd really appreciate it. And last but not least, don't forget to tune into TPS every single day for more cool videos. We'll see you next time.